The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Burlington County Board of Supervisors. Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda? I have none. Meet with department heads and elected officials. Terry Johnson, Des Moines County Auditor.
Good morning. Just want to let everybody know we got 2 elections going on. Right now we have the Mediapolis School special election. It is September the 8th and absentee voting is currently going on for that. And then we are still collecting absentee request forms for the general election, but those ballots and absentee voting will not begin until October the 5th for that. And so far we've gotten, I think last week I reported 584 and this week I report 898. So we're some of the parties and different or organizations and stuff must be sending out request forms to everybody because we've been getting calls, you know, do I have to fill these out again and all of that. But yeah, we've been getting quite a few in. And then also Ag Extension, their candidate filing deadline is August the 26th. So after all of that information is in, and then when the Secretary of State certifies the list of candidates and everything at the end of August, early September, then we will be ordering ballots for the general election. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Terry. Colin Gerst, IT.
Just keeping busy like always, nothing new to report.
Chris Sweet, Conservation.
Well, I got a big one for you today.
Good.
That's why I came here.
Get handouts.
We just finished publishing our annual report, and so I thought I'd come in and just kind of go over the highlights of that. I'll leave the rest of these here if anybody wants one, but we publish these every year. Actually, by code, the Conservation Department's required to provide a report of activities and budget to the Board of Supervisors. We started doing these real nice ones here a few years back. It's nice, my office manager's a graphic designer, so it looks real nice. Just kind of highlight some of our big projects. You know, obviously the pandemic was the big issue, you know, in the world, but for us, it increased business dramatically. We have never seen more people in our parks, in our campgrounds, on our trails. It's unprecedented, the numbers of people, and it's hard to quantify that. We do have some trail counts, like on the Flint River Trail, that shows our trail visitation tripled. We counted in May and we counted last August, and the counts then tripled from what they were last August. And just kind of anecdotally, we've seen that. We've never seen more people than what we have in Stars Cave. It's not uncommon to have 30 vehicles parked in the parking lot on a nice day at Stars Cave with people back there hiking the trails. There isn't hardly a time goes by I don't see cars parked in that little parking lot off of Highway 61. I suspect we're going to have to make that thing bigger sometime in the future because people like to access that paved portion right there, and then once the highway's done, that's going to go underneath the highway and loop up onto Flint Bottom Road, so I suspect we're going to get even more traffic there. If you look at page 4 and 5, our camping numbers have just been through the roof this last fiscal year. We counted 6,300, just over 6,300 people camping in our campgrounds. Almost 70% of them were at Big Hollow. If you look at that line graph up on the top left on page 4, Big Hollow, the number of people camping in Big Hollow has more than doubled in the past 5 years, and that's
Those campsites are individuals.
that is so that's individuals, or well, it's camping units, I guess I should say, but we don't know exactly how many because we don't always capture that as well. And so, you know, and that's directly reflected in the renovations we did up there. You know, adding the shower house a few years back and all of the full hookup sites. There isn't hardly a weekend that goes by. I think I can count on one hand the number of weekends we've had any sites available at Big Hollow since May, and maybe even before that. I think we had, 2 weekends ago, the heat index broke 110 and we had a campsite. So apparently that's the threshold that you've got to hit in order to have campsites available on a Saturday, if they call it. And so we're awful proud of that. And then just, kind of some highlights on our land stewardship and the acres that we affect throughout the county. Summary of our parks and trails and the places that we manage. Summary of our environmental education efforts on page 8 there. Our inaugural big Halloween event, we wanted to highlight that. That was just that came out of nowhere. It was just kind of an idea that our camp host had, said, hey, let's have a little Halloween thing up here. Maybe we'll get some more campers in August.
So part of your staff, is it?
That's one of my board members, yeah. Yeah, that's Matt Hass. That's his zombie outfit.
It's like Garnish.
Right? Yeah. And, it was things like that. Matt ordered online a Hollywood quality, zombie costume. We have 32 campsites. Every single campsite up there decorated their campsite. And we just had, we don't know how many it was. It was several hundred people came up to trick or treat among the RVs up there. And it was such a smash hit, kind of out of the blue smash hit, that we decided kind of on the spot that we would have the event again the next year. That was pre-COVID, of course. So we went ahead and announced that we were going to have it, and that very same day we sold out every campsite at the campground. And so, we expect it to be as big this year, assuming we can have it with the pandemic and all. So we're kind of in a holding pattern to wait and see. Our education stats there, obviously program numbers are down thanks to COVID. The nature center visitation down thanks to COVID, but not nearly as much as what I thought it would be. We must have had some really great numbers early enough in the year and late enough in last fiscal year, or at the last calendar year to cover that. And then page 10 there just highlights the volunteers that we recognized last year. We always do volunteer recognition every year. We're getting ready to do that again. We did cancel our summer celebration and our volunteer dinner this year due to the pandemic, but we are still going to award some of the great volunteers that we have, and what we will do is create videos for that presentation. We'll share that on our YouTube page and on our social media. I'm also going to do kind of a video presentation of this to share, because normally we do that in an event that we have at Stars Cave, and since we're not having that, we're just going to share it through the interweb and call it good. So. That's really about all I got, just kind of the highlights of what we did this last fiscal year and some of the things we're most proud of, and looking forward to moving on and getting past this whole pandemic thing and getting back to some semblance of normalcy in the coming years. So,
Thanks, we look forward to looking through that.
you bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Rodney Bleasner, maintenance.
Good morning. Really have nothing new to report. We had just some minor wind damage yesterday, and nothing too major, so got that all fixed up and just business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Carter, secondary roads.
Good morning. Good news, I guess. Upper Flint Road opened up this morning, so Mrs. Broker will be thrilled. But good to have that project open. Probably good timing with the closures on the bridge project the DOT's doing and stuff. That'll let traffic have another route nearby Burlington they can use. So that was good. Mediapolis Road bridges are still closed, but the contractors are working. So I wouldn't call it on the cusp, but they're definitely in the latter stages of that project. Still working on some projects for this winter, and I also wanted to extend condolences. The paving contractor on the Highway 61 project north of Burlington had an accident on site yesterday, and I believe, from what I understand, they had a fatality there, and that's tough for anybody working in construction. You're kind of, you don't think about it day in and day out, but there's always things that can happen. Obviously something happens, so wanted to extend our condolences to that company and to that family. So
Thank you, Ryan. Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
Good morning, everyone. Pretty much the status quo. We have done some interviews for the open ACA position. We're finding that we're competing with some bigger counties that have a lot more to offer, both financially and otherwise. So we're struggling with that. I think that's just common for this area when you're trying to hire young professionals. Getting ready for jury trials, which always seemed like they were off in the far distant future, but are now about 5 weeks away. That's why we have the work session where we met via Zoom with majority of the judges, county attorneys, and a good percentage of the defense bar last Wednesday to discuss how we were going to do some things. It seemed that the consensus was jury selection is going to be the difficult part. Just simply because depending upon the nature of the trial, we can have anywhere from 50 to 100 prospective jurors. And the capacity on the courtroom upstairs is 23. And you figure there's 10 to 12 of those are people that are required to be there by nature of their job or their current position. So trying to figure out how we're going to do a feasible jury selection. Obviously there are some cases that are going to be a little bit easier. For instance, a sexual assault, we do most of the jury selection individually anyway, just because of the nature of the evidence that they're going to hear and the personal nature that can be for some people. But you know, just a run-of-the-mill burglary, where are we going to sit 50, 55 people while we decide which of those should be on the panel to even be questioned, let alone pick the jury. So that's what we're going to talk about in the work session, and one of the things that was bandied about. And I have the Supreme Court appointed a jury trial task force to kind of make recommendations for what county attorneys' offices, courts should be doing to get ready to do jury trials. I know one of the concerns that everyone had is it really didn't give us very many nuts and bolts. It was, well, we think you should try to do this or try to do that. I think what having the district-wide meeting last week really gave us insight on was just in our district, 8A, and it was comprised of both 8A and 8B, was how different each courthouse is and how they're set up differently. And what will work in Des Moines County is not going to work in Van Buren County, which may, just the differences between the courthouses in North Lee and South Lee, that they're not even going to be able to do a county-wide thing because the courthouses are very different. So really what we surmised is the task force wasn't very helpful. And that it really didn't get, it just kind of gave some very general guidelines, recommendations. Judge Brown, I think the one consensus we all reach is that each county is really going to have to figure out what works best for them. And so one of the things that we talked about was doing jury selection in an off-site location, so we'll talk about that in the work session. Other than that, we're all just getting ready, getting our witness lists out and trying to decide which case is going to go, and trying to remember how we actually do jury trials because it's been so long.
Are they gonna open the courts to civil jury trials at the same time or later? Or?
Right now, the priority is on criminal trials simply because, well, for instance, the one that we are for certain is going on September 15th, which is our first scheduled trial date, is a young man who's been incarcerated since March of last year. At some point, he decided to waive speedy trial, which of course extends your deadlines, and then COVID hits right in the middle of that, and now his year will begin to run anew from September 14. We've all decided that that is the young man that needs to go first. So the priority is criminal trials first, and then we also have priorities amongst those that people who have demanded speedy trial and are incarcerated are going to be the first ones that go. Then those who've demanded speedy trial and who are not incarcerated, and quite frankly, for all intents and purposes, we don't usually have too many of those. Once they get out of jail, they're real quick to waive speedy trial. Then it will be waivers who are still in jail. And then the waiver, just people who are out and about and waiving. Those actually will be the bulk of docket that we'll have. So right now we're setting trials out January, February, March of next year, just because we know the backlog is so tremendous that it's just going to take it'll take us a good year or two to get actually caught up.
Thanks, Lisa. Ken Hyman, Community Services.
Good morning. Tomorrow is the CO Governing Board meeting in the afternoon, and since I'll be away for my wife's surgery, Patty's gonna take the claims to the Governing Board, and she'll wait for them to be signed and bring them back. So she's talked with Ryan, and I guess they've got it all worked out. Just wanted to let you know that should be fine. Patty enters all those claims anyways, and if there's any questions, she'd be a good resource person to have there, so. That's all I have for right now. We have a GA report on the agenda, but that's about it.
Take the best wishes of the board with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Krista, I'm gonna save you for last. We got anybody on that?
I do. We'll start with Gina Harden, Emergency Management.
Gina Harden, Emergency Management.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We, hi. You're in the canyon, Gina.
Sounds like she got two devices running.
Yeah. Yeah, your speaker's a little loud, Gina. She remuted herself.
Wanna go back to her?
Yeah. I'll come back to you, Gina. We'll skip to Jackie Meyer, Clerk of Court.
Jackie Meyer, Clerk of Court.
Good morning, everybody. We're just, like Lisa Schaefer mentioned earlier, we're working very closely with the judges, the jury managers, and the attorneys to determine what the jury trials are gonna look like coming up, well, in roughly about a month. So, that's our main focus, and, how many folks we can get into the courtroom, how many we can have waiting in the hallways as far as potential jurors go. So we're trying to follow some of the recommendations, but like Lisa did say, they were just basically recommendations of what you could do. So that's pretty much keeping us busy.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Janelle Nally Longquist, Des Moines County Treasurer.
Janelle Nally Longquist, Des Moines County Treasurer.
Good morning, everyone. Just like everyone else, we continue to be busy as well. We're currently working on processing the 2019 taxes that will be payable next month, September, and in March of 2021. So we'll continue to work on this billing process the rest of this week and next, and hopefully have those statements out soon. But other than that, that's all I have to report today.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Natalie Steffner, Des Moines County Recorder's Office.
Natalie Steffner, Des Moines County Recorder's Office.
Good morning. I'm just working away, nothing new to report.
Thank you, Natalie.
I'm gonna come back to Gina Harden.
Gina Harden, Emergency Management.
I love technology. Sounds like she's having a party.
All right, can you hear me?
Sorta.
Yeah, we're real bad at echo, Gina.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, couple things real quick. The storm yesterday, we had a few minor damage reports to my Skywarn team. So they put those into the sharing system with the National Weather Service. We do have several outages yet through MediaCom. And evidently their phones and internet are still down. So that's impacting a number of companies and businesses and personal people in the county, unfortunately. Also, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning submitted our countywide mitigation plan to FEMA Region 7, and they had some questions and wanted some changes on that plan. So we're working on setting up a call with them so we can get clarification, so we can get that plan finalized before the due date and before the end of the grant. So that is still in process. Regarding COVID, we're still getting PPE or personal protective equipment for the Test Iowa Clinic. They changed our day to the week of that delivery, but that is still in process. And we are also coordinating the PPE that is coming in from schools. And the state did postpone that delivery for a week, so that'll be coming in next week. Still waiting on details on to how that's going to work from there. And on the CARES funding, we did get some information on that, and I will be forwarding that on to the local elected officials. I think it'd be the easiest way to get that information out, because there's lots of questions on that funding piece. The 100 million local funding is gonna be one process, and the 25 million local match is another process. But the main thing is that if the expenses incurred by any department or county or city has to go through the public assistance process first, if it's eligible. If it's not, then it can be used with the local match and, as part of the local funding and get paid for that. So, hopefully, I'll have more information on that soon, but that's what I know about that.
Thanks, Gina.
I have,
That's all I had.
Thank you.
I have two more on here that called in but didn't use their attendee number, so I don't know who they are. So,
Is there another department head or elected official out there?
Zach James with Land Use.
Hi, Zach.
Good morning. Just to follow up with what Gina had just said on the county hazard mitigation plan, we did submit that to the state hazard mitigation office and didn't receive any comments. And then we just heard back, I think it was last week, from FEMA, who had a fair amount of comments, and so we're working to set up a call with them because we're a little unsure about some of their comments, trying to get some clarification. We want to get that wrapped up as soon as we can and finish up that hazard mitigation plan for the county. So that should be, hopefully here in the next few weeks, we'll have something that we can bring in front of you guys to present and approve. On the land use side, we have a subdivision that has been out for review. And I'm not sure when it's going to get to you guys for the agenda. There's a fencing issue that is we're waiting to be resolved. I'm not sure if the neighboring property owner didn't want to sign the fence waiver. And I know we've received some phone calls from township trustees, and I think they're maybe trying to discuss some of those issues on the fence side. But once that, assuming that gets cleared up, we'll get that set up and on the agenda for approval. And then we have a couple other subdivisions that we've been working with the property owners up front here on their plat to get everything how they need it before they submit it. So we'll be expecting a couple more here, I would think, in the next couple of weeks. Then we have received a floodplain permit on Friday that we're going to be reviewing here this week and working through and continue to work through on our ordinance updates. We're getting pretty close. I think we're going to try and set up a meeting with the zoning commission here in the next few weeks to present the new ordinances and all the changes to them. So hopefully that'll continue to move and get those wrapped up here in the near future. I think that's all I've got for today.
Thanks, Zach.
Well,
Is there another?
the other one dropped off the call, so I'm not sure who that was, but that's all I had.
Okay. Krista Fogelmiller, Public Health.
Good morning. We continue to be busy at Public Health. We currently have 186 cases in Des Moines County with 106 recovered. With what they're considering recovered on the website at this point in time is 30 days from the time that they would have been diagnosed. for
They moved that
positive
move
test.
from 28?
Oh, I'm sorry, 28, yes.
Okay.
28 days, sorry. 28 days, and so they will automatically then be removed off from the site. So these folks wouldn't actually be considered infectious. They would just be still in that not counted on the recovered because they haven't met the 28 days. Yeah, the 30 days is where it falls off of our system and Ides. Sorry for the confusion there. So, and just to kind of caveat a little bit about what Gina was talking about with the funding is the Iowa COVID-19 local government relief funding. I know Gina and I briefly had a chance to visit about it with the storms and COVID going on. We're going to meet this afternoon on this, and this is a fund where we're able to get some reimbursement through initially through the public assistance grant to request some funds through that, and that would be for personal protective equipment, sanitizing products, testing equipment and supplies, ventilators, other necessary COVID supplies, as well as some reimbursement for salaries for if there was any salaries for public safety or public health that was basically for COVID response, sanitizing equipment, necessary medical supplies. I have some information on that, and I've also kind of pulled up one of the things that we'll have to do is put together an application very similar to the sanitizer we purchased for the county a couple of months ago. We would do an application and then submit that to the public assistance grant. Once that's been denied, then it would be eligible for the Iowa local COVID governmental funds. And there's also a worksheet here that talks about what the funding allocation would be for the county. It's based on county population. And for Des Moines County, it looks to be $494,023.90. So I'll share that with everyone. And more information to follow. I know that Gina's been working with Homeland Security to get a little more information on that. And
I think that applies, you and I have talked about this, I think that applies to all local governments, should apply to the incorporated cities as well. And probably need some help from the county attorney. The board has to pass a resolution promising FEMA that we're gonna play nice with their money or something to that extent. We'll need somebody with more skills than any of the three of us possess to write that resolution.
there's kind of a I did borrow kind of a sample of what's been proposed in one of the other counties, so that's just a sample draft for you to look at, kind of get some ideas about that as well.
Okay. And I guess I'd ask each department head and elected official to take a look at their department, any expenses that, can be attributed to COVID-19 that aren't covered by another grant, or, we're gonna need those, and contact public health. The deal about this is I think it has to be submitted by the middle of September.
Yes, for expenses that are, it's March through July 31st, has to be in by September 15th, and then anything from, sorry, I didn't have a copy, but include the rest of the time frame has to be in by October 1st. So I would ask that any department heads or any department that has any expenses towards COVID to definitely reach out to me or Gina by the end of August, so we have time to be able to get that application sent in and go through the public assistance grant for denial to be able to submit it to this other grant, because it has to go through 2 steps.
That would be great. So to reinforce that, any department head or elected official, that please take a look, or have someone take a look at any expenses you've incurred over the last few months, and any that can be attributed to COVID-19 directly or indirectly. Reach out to Krista or Gina if they think that that's something that needs to be included. I'll take care of COVID-19. Correspondence.
I have one. I have some correspondence from Dan Wiedemeyer.
That looks more like partial toast.
This was given to Dan Wiedemeyer for his service on the Iowa Department of Transportation's commission, which he was served at least 2 terms. And
was chairman for some time. And Dan has given a lot of service to Des Moines County, and we've certainly appreciated everything he's done. He's
still doing it.
Still doing it on our, like on our transportation, or our airport commissioner. He's our representative. He's been conservation board, he's been all over the place. And anyway, Dan had this hanging in his office, and he is hanging up his office, so he ran out of a place to put it and wanted to know if we would like it. And with permission of you guys, I will turn it over to the auditor and see if she can find a spot to put it.
I think that's a great idea myself.
I certainly have no objection to that. That sounds fine.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a beautiful picture, and
It'll look great in her office.
You picked it, Brian. Is that what you said?
Do you want to see it up against the bookshelf?
That does my correspondence.
Proceed to discussion and vote. We have the 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant JAG agreement.
Good morning.
Morning.
Adam Schaefer of the Burlington Police Department. I just want to take a few moments of your time today to discuss a proposed interlocal agreement between the City of Burlington and Des Moines County. This is in regards to a JAG Byrne grant opportunity where we can receive funds up to $22,272. We do these on a yearly basis in cooperation with the Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies within Des Moines County. This particular one, we want a partnership with the Des Moines County Sheriff's Office. In conversation with the Sheriff's Office, we determined that we want to spend the funds on a universal forensic extraction device, more commonly known as a Celebrate device. Basically what that does is it allows law enforcement to download information and data from computers, cell phones, including emails, texts, pictures, to use this information to further investigations and also assist in the prosecution of some cases such as child pornography and gun trafficking and such. The total cost of the project is $22,026. That includes $9,300 for the device itself. It also includes the necessary cables, software, and we also have the opportunity to send 2 employees, one from the Burlington Police Department and one from the Des Moines County Sheriff's Office, to some training. At that training, they'll become certified as a certified forensic extractionist, if that's a word, and also the ability to analyze the information and then provide that to the investigators. We've done these cooperation agreements in the past, and it's just kind of a thing. The grant is due August 18th. It goes before the City Council of Burlington on Monday of next week. And I'll take any questions you may have.
What's that, I assume, so in other words, so if I've got a laptop that you wanted to go through, then this would give you the tools to look through my laptop and see whatever might.
Right, it'll also reveal what may have been deleted. It's real important on cell phone extractions, people who we arrest who we believe may have communicated about their crime through their phone. If we have a court order or their consent, we'll be able to use that information to extract that information from their cell phone. More importantly, like text messages, videos, photographs, and stuff like that. It would be a great tool. Currently, we have been using the state DPS for this, but having it housed at the Burlington Police Department and readily available to us, Sheriff's Department in West Burlington, will expedite many of our investigations, and we can use that any time of the day.
Lisa, you want to say something?
Great.
He actually went where I did. Right now, the only extraction specialists that we have are members of the DCI. I believe there's also one down in Keokuk who's a member of their police department. The problem we run into is we have to wait for their availability. And so this would be much easier to have somebody in-house for each department. That way we can get those results fairly quickly. And again, Tom, unless we had probable cause to believe that there was evidence of a crime on your laptop, we would have no reason to be wanting to do that.
I just wondered, but that's what it's actually for.
Basically, yeah, they just take, well, you know, especially younger people, you basically have a computer in your hand. They just plug it into the machine and yeah, it pulls up everything that's on that computer. It pulls up what websites you've looked at on Google. It pulls down any pictures you have. It pulls down any text messages, phone calls you've made, obviously not the content. If there are voicemails, those will show up on the Cellbrite. It really, and for a lot of people who really carry their life in their palm of their hand, it can provide a lot of useful information. As Major Schaefer pointed out, we have, especially these younger folks who like to tote around guns that may or may not be legal or may not be legal for them to possess. We get some very good evidence because they all feel the need to post pictures of themselves. And we can get, with the guns in their hands. So we can use that information in prosecution once we say, well, no, obviously this is you, right? So it's really just a very quick way. The reports can be anywhere from 300 pages to 3,000 pages or more. Just kind of depends on what all you do on your computer. But it is a tremendous source of evidence, and then it does assist us in prosecution when we can say on page 587 there are 3 photographs of you with an AK-47. That is you, right? So it's a good use of resources, and it would be nice to have somebody local. That way we're not kind of fighting to get into something, because there aren't that many extraction specialists even close by. I think Agent Olmeyer, I believe, is one. Otherwise, we have to go all the way up to the Quad Cities to find somebody generally. And then if you do need them to testify, then you're fighting, which you do with every DCI agent, fighting 98 other counties that they might also be called in to testify in.
Well, Major Schaefer, I think this is a good idea, and Sheriff Johnson, I see him nodding back there, so you need approval.
Need a motion to approve.
Approve.
So moved.
You already moved, you're gonna have to second it.
I'll second it.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
How does the Burlington Police Department get along with our county attorney?
No comment. What I have also is 3 copies of the same thing that I just need your chairman's signature on, and then I'll take that to the city council next Monday, and we'll bring you an original copy with everyone's signature to be followed.
Oh, I put a couple copies in there.
Already got it?
Should this be stamped, or it's just got a bunch of signatures on it?
Probably just a bunch of signatures, just do the signatures.
So if you want these now, or
You can hand it to
will that
him.
device, if I do a factory reset on my phone, will it still pull up the information?
Yep.
We usually get your phone before you get the opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you.
It can.
Oh, I probably wouldn't take a picture of myself with a gun either.
You'd be surprised what people take pictures of themselves doing. Guns are just a good example. There's very little I haven't seen.
I think Tom's the only one that signed,
Any other
and I think I have to too.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Major.
Or does Lisa's? Lisa, are you?
I apologize for Bob's questions.
You and Tom signed?
It's a frequent question.
I signed the 3 that he had, but
Oh,
I
okay.
can sign the ones that.
We have payroll reimbursement claims in the amount of $229.24.
Move to approve.
Second.
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have a resolution approving a pay or rate increase for election workers. Whereas according to sections 4920, 49.20 of the 2019 Code of Iowa, the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors establishes the compensation rate for the precinct election officials. Whereas the Board of Supervisors wish to increase the hourly rate necessary to retain election workers to work at election precincts. Now therefore be it resolved by the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors that effective September 1st, 2020, precinct election chairs shall receive $12 per hour and precinct election workers receive $10 per hour per election. I think this will help Terry staff the polling places better. And
Yeah, what a job. Well, they go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and get off at 10.
Yep.
Yep.
That's a long day.
and shoot out a couple times every so often.
Yeah. Put up the irate public. I move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Appointment to the Des Moines County Veterans Affairs Commission. Gentlemen, subsequent to my February 1st, 2020 letter at our Wednesday, July 29th monthly meeting, Mr. Francis McAllister, a U.S. Army veteran and former administrator for this commission, was present and asked that he be appointed as the third commissioner. The existing commission approves this appointment. By this letter, I am requesting the Board of Supervisors officially appoint Mr. McAllister as the third commissioner for the Des Moines County Commission of Veterans Affairs. Sincerely, Arnie Hosnick.
Move to approve?
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have a Class C liquor license for Hy-Vee Keokuk for the Pep's wedding at the Barn on the Ridge on Irish Ridge Road for August 27th.
Move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have personnel action. Is the sheriff still there?
Just stepped away, Judge, or
Okay,
I
well,
thought
if he
he
gets,
was, but he must have stepped away.
okay. Pretty good.
Todd's gonna chase him down.
If he shows up again, you.
Probably.
Okay, we have a,
He's in at the M&M factory.
Yep, here he
didn't leave
is.
the building quick enough, huh?
I didn't want to overlook you. I thought you might want to contribute something to the department head.
Yeah, I would, and nothing major, everything is going well at the office. We did have a COVID exposure, and we are now requiring anyone that walks into our office to have a mask on. We had a DCI agent come in and inadvertently exposed, came back COVID positive last week, so I've got one of my guys on 14-day leave. Actually, he'll be back next Monday, it'll be his 14th day, but I want to tell you something, and we have a tremendous asset sitting in this office, and it's Krista. I mean, she is so much help to me, and she, picks up the phone anytime, day or night that I call her. I know she's getting not only calls from me, but everybody else on how to handle some of this crazy stuff. So I want to thank her publicly for all she does. She's a tremendous asset. And I don't know how she could be more helpful. I mean, every question I've ever asked, she was able to come up with a good answer, and it really makes me feel better when I have good advice to go with. And I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
So that's all. That's all I got.
Her board would be happy to hear that because they're gonna review her pretty quick.
Yeah, well,
Well, then I second Mike's remarks, because I know I've utilized her several times in the last few weeks. As we start getting more and more open in the courts, we
yeah.
run into some little issues every once in a while.
I say the same thing about Rodney too. Rodney's also a huge asset for all this craziness going on too, so. Hey, Colin, I'm not so sure about Rodney.
Yeah. Seems like a stretch.
We've got a pretty good team except for one. Really working well together, and that is such a big deal. And I appreciate everything everybody's doing for us.
We've commented to each other that we have as staff, top to bottom, as good as we've had for a long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think Des Moines County's been well cared for and well, speaking for the elected officials and department heads.
Todd, I agree.
No. So, thank you all. We have a personnel action for the engineer's office. Taylor Sowers, a seasonal worker, termination as of August 4th, 2020.
Move approved.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Brian's gonna have to go back to work now.
Well, and I'd point out termination seems kind of harsh, but that's the only option on there. It's a summer kid going back to school.
Yeah.
So appreciate his work and so just to clarify that, we'll have a couple more summer kid terminations coming up shortly.
In the Sheriff's Office, we have Jennifer Hartman, part-time clerical resignation, effective August 4th.
Move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. For local health, we have Jennifer Hartman, secretary and new hire secretary, a rate of $34,763.99.
Move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have the general assistance monthly report for July 2020. This report will be on file at the auditor's office and available for public review, either in person or electronically. We have minutes for the regular meeting of August 4th, 2020.
Move approved.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have a closed session to discuss possible litigation for Iowa Code 21.5, paragraph 1, paragraph C. We need a motion to open a closed session, go into closed session. Closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Brian, could you step in for Randy?
I move to go out of closed session.
I'll second.
Terry?
Bob Beck,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. The board discussed litigation strategies regarding imminent pending litigation with the Board of Supervisors, the County Attorney's Office, Maintenance Department, and the County Engineer. Other business,
I have none.
I have none.
future agenda items,
I have none.
committee reports.
I have none.
I attended a conservation meeting this week. Very good. You got the information here, and Chris talked to you.
You help author that?
No. I didn't read it though.
I attended the Des Moines County Safety Committee meeting. We reviewed the accident log for the last 6 months, and September will be National Preparedness Month, and October is National Fire Prevention Month, so there will probably be a courthouse fire drill sometime in October. So I have public input. Seeing as how we have limited attendance, anybody from the public wishing to comment may email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com, that's BOARD @dmcounty.com, or call 319-753-8203, extension 4, that's 319-753-8203, extension 4. We will give you 2 minutes to dial that number or send us an email with a comment. Bob, did you have a comment? You had your hand up. I didn't know whether you're...
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I've spent my life organizing things, and it seems like the closed session would make more sense at the end of the meeting so that all the people sitting out here could go back to work.
Talk to the legal person right behind you.
And I don't know, most of the closed sessions I've seen since I've been here have been during the business part of it rather than as a work session.
Right.
After the meeting was adjourned, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be done that way. I don't know.
It's just a thought.
Do you know, Terry?
I just always had them during the discussion and vote sections.
And actually, we're not that big, we're gonna get rid of you, Lori.
I'm not in that big a hurry to go write about you.
Touche.
I am, my deadline's 11 o'clock.
Oh.
I gotta drive
We'll,
home.
but that's a good question.
The whole 5 miles?
I'll ask maybe the county attorney or Todd or somebody could look up and see whether a closed session does have to be held during the business part of the meeting, or it could be in a work session
I don't think it
after.
matters,
Doesn't matter?
as long as there's an appropriate vote,
We'll,
it doesn't matter when they do
we'll take
it.
that under advisement. That's probably a good idea.
I think part of it probably
I
depends on
confess it's not just my idea.
I was the one complaining.
Okay. We aren't gonna point fingers.
Can I speak to you briefly?
We'll have a work session, but in the break between them.
Yeah.
We got 12 seconds left.
Bob, you'll like after when we get to the break between the work sessions, when you're gonna want to talk to the county attorney, I'll tell you the last time I was asked about that break.
No, I'm-
Okay, 2 minutes are up. With an aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
There was a Hawkeye reporter, a young man, 22. And anyway, so he always come here, so attorney regarding off-site jury selection sites. Lisa, the floor is all yours.
Well, as I mentioned previously in the board meeting, we're getting ready to start jury trials. I believe the Supreme Court advisory order allows us to begin jury trials on September 14th. We currently, I believe, have jury trials now rescheduled for September 15th, 22nd, 29th. Basically 3 weeks out of every month for now until the end of the year. Obviously, November we only have 2 dates in November because the unfortunate Veterans Day just falls right in the middle of the week, and that would be very difficult, although I wouldn't be surprised, given the number of speedy trial demands that we have, that if we have a short trial that could occur on that Thursday and Friday, the 12th and 13th, that we knew we could be done in that time, we'll probably add that third trial week, kind of half week. And then obviously, December, I believe there's only 2 dates just because of the way the holidays fall. So, and our understanding is we don't anticipate there being any further moving that back, that we're all going to be ready to go on the 15th. The question we had, here's the jury trial task force recommendations. It is much of, you might want to consider kind of things. You might want to think about doing this, you might want to think about doing that. In our district-wide Zoom meeting last week, for the most part, I think we all kind of reached the conclusion that the actual trial part is not going to be that difficult. The capacity we have upstairs in the 3rd floor courtroom is 23. Except for the rare occasion of like a homicide trial or a very high publicity trial, which we do have a homicide currently set in December. Hopefully we'll get all the bugs worked out before then. Other than that, we think that is going to be more than sufficient to house the people. The 2 biggest issues we looked at were the actual jury selection process, and the other concern that we had was if we are right up to that limit of the 23 people. And I think we figured by the time we get 13 jurors, a judge, a court reporter, a court attendant, a prosecutor, the officer, the defendant, and, their attorney. I knew I was forgetting somebody. We're already at 20 people, and that doesn't count courthouse security. Because obviously if they're incarcerated, which the first several trials will be, we're going to have another 1 or 2 people in there for that purpose as well. So if we have a victim who would not, because if it's a criminal case, they're not a party, I'm using air quotes, not a party to the case, but they as a victim, especially if they are a registered victim, they are legally entitled to be in the courtroom.
What's a registered victim?
There is a code section in the state of Iowa, I believe it's 913, don't hold me to that because I don't remember right off the top of my head, that a victim of a crime can actually register with our office, and that makes us legally obligated to inform them of every step that happens in the case. So for instance, if Colin's home is burglarized, and he will get a victim letter, a victim packet from our office, and included in that packet will be a victim registration form. So he completes that registration form and sends it back to our office, to whichever victim witness coordinator it is. We enter that information, and from there on, we are obligated to notify him anytime there's a court appearance.
Is that similar to Vine? Is that similar to Vine? The Iowa Vine?
Yep, and no, Vine is completely separate.
Oh,
This is obligations on our office. Okay. So what that means practically speaking, which we do that as much as possible regardless of whether the victim's registered or not, but we're legally obligated to do it if there's a registered victim. If there is for instance, where we see it, where it actually affects what we're doing, is if we have a defendant, so say Colin has filled out his paperwork, he plans to offer a victim impact statement at sentencing. But the defendant in his case comes in and pleads guilty and says, I just want to be sentenced and go to prison, I'm waiving all my sentencing rights, because they're entitled to 15 days between plea and sentencing. They're entitled to have the advanced preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report in advance of their sentencing for the judge's benefit. And they're entitled, a motion in arrest of judgment. They can waive that. It's a motion they make to say the plea was bad. Sometimes we get defendants, I just want to do everything today. Well, if we have Colin, a registered victim, who we had no way of knowing that that defendant was going to make those requests at the time of the guilty plea, we cannot proceed with immediate sentencing because he's not been notified yet. He's been notified of the guilty plea or the pretrial conference and a potential guilty plea, but he is legally entitled to be there. I've had that happen several times where the judge is ready to proceed. Ms. Schaefer, is the state agreeable? I'm sorry, Your Honor, but we cannot do that pursuant to whatever code section it is. I usually have it in my notes. We do have a registered victim in this matter. He has not been notified that there would be a sentencing today, and he would like the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. And so the judge's hands are tied. They cannot do a sentencing that day. So if we have a registered victim, obviously they are entitled to be there. In cases like sexual assaults or crimes against persons, generally we'll have a support, friends, family, whatever their support people are. Well, if we're already looking at between 20 and 23 people already being in our courtroom, there's going to be no place for them to be. There would be no place for the defendant's family to be if the defendant's family chose. So we have a couple of issues that we need to deal with in Des Moines County. The first one, and probably the more important of the two, is how we're going to complete jury selection. And then the other one is there a place in the courtroom where we could do like a live streaming of the trial to allow victim, whoever they have with them, and or defendant's family, obviously not in the same room, where they could watch the trial as though it were a public trial, because trials are public, very similar to a Board of Supervisors meeting. They just don't get input the way the public do in a Board of Supervisors meeting. They are entitled to be able to see that. So that's another thing that we're kind of talking about. Judges and lawyers, we tend to be, especially when it comes to trial procedure, we tend to be very, very conservative. And so this is kind of, the whole idea of live stream at trial is just sending us all over the edge. But that is also something that we will need to look at as well. For instance, the trial that will be proceeding, as far as we know, unless the defendant, for whatever reason, asks for it to be continued, which after what will be a good 1.5 years in jail, I cannot imagine they would want to do that. That's going to be a sexual assault trial, so we know some of those issues are already going to be there. We're going to have the victim family members that are going to want to be watching, and we've got to figure that all out. So.
Would they have any funds to put something up there to do the live streams? Because before, like when we had the
well, the
civil service.
task force recommended that the courts, like the actual judicial department, should pay for all of this. But they're like, no, we're not going to do that. So what I particularly, to kind of get started, wanted to talk about was off-site jury selection. That was something that was bandied about a lot in the meeting last week.
Let me just throw something out, sort of related. We talked about that money, that for extra expenses. Some of that might cover something like that.
And I had actually jotted that down on my notes. Is that something that?
I thought Krista said it had to be within those 2 months though. What is it?
Well, but then there's also expenses. What we have to turn in by the middle of September is expenses that have been incurred through July 31st. But then there's going to be a second time to turn in expenses.
Oh, okay.
And you could ask Krista about that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be awesome if we could get something. Because the two big, those are going to be the two. And then actually I wanted to talk to you, Colin, at some point. We do have one minor trial concern. One of the things that has been recommended, I generally have done for years anyway, is that videos, which are obviously played on the computer on a screen, but photographs, any documentary evidence that we would have, for instance, like a lab report, The task force is recommending that we no longer do those as paper exhibits, the way we normally would. Ms. DNA analyst, is this a copy of your report? We offer this. We set it down, the jury gets to take it with them. The task force recommendation, I think this is something that we're all kind of on board with, because I tend to do it that way anyway, is to put everything electronically. Well, right now our courtroom is set up, we have a screen on the east wall, but we are going to have to spread our jury out throughout the courtroom. And so people who are seated in, the jurors who are seated in the gallery are not going to be able to see what's on that screen. But due to social distancing, it's not like we could just round everybody up like we do sometimes and just put them in there. If you remember during my budget hearing, one of the things I wanted to do with our incentive money that's kind of been sitting there is to outfit our courtroom with more modern equipment. One of the things I had been thinking was a couple of big screen LED TVs. Whew, that's too many letters too quick. And this is where Rodney would come in, but they would actually be on wall mount brackets that we could move those around. And so if we needed to angle one of those or both of those to get them so everyone in the courtroom could see. When COVID hit, we kind of decided that might be something that comes after the first of the year. But now that we have this happening and all these changes, that's something we might want to speed up. Because that's the only trial part. From the time we have the jury picked and we're doing opening statements to closing statements, that's truly the one thing that I think we have a snag. Because it's just going to be very, very difficult. If we have computer issues, which happens every once in a while in the middle of a trial, you're standing there and you hand the photographs and the jury just looks at them. We're not allowed to do that anymore because of sanitation issues. So they have to be put up on the screen, and right now what we have in the courtroom is just going to be very, very limiting. But the first place we needed, one of the biggest problem that everyone in for all of the counties in the district foresaw is doing jury selection.
Have you got any thoughts on where you might go for that?
Well, we bandied around some things. I know Judge Brown, she was going to be here today, but unfortunately she had a hearing pop up that she had to handle in Mount Pleasant. One of the things, she is not, because I know one of the first places that came to mind for me was James Madison Auditorium. Obviously, she wants to stay away from schools because they're going to be dealing with their own distancing issues.
Yeah.
Someone else had brought up churches. I guess, I don't know how comfortable I am with that. I guess
I'll
I'm a big
let you
believer.
know on that one, because I need to contact them to find out if I can even have my precincts in them this fall, so.
Well, and I'm a big believer in separation of church and state, and that's just weird to me.
Yeah, that is weird.
The only other places we could think of are places that would actually charge us rent.
Auditorium out.
I don't know. Well, part of it depends on what you guys might be willing to pay. I know a couple of the county attorneys who have already approached this idea with their board. Their board, I believe can't remember which county it was on the other side of the district, said, their board chair said, we pay for a courtroom. You people figure it out. Not real cooperative. Judge Brown and I, obviously, we piped in and said our board has been really, really flexible and great in getting us up and running so we can get back to business. So that's kind of what I was here. Auditorium, truly, if we could afford it and it's available, which I can't imagine they have a whole lot happening on Tuesdays during the day, would be just the perfect location because it's an easy walk to the courthouse.
Are they using James Madison for school activities?
Yes,
Are they
they are.
okay?
I believe they're doing it, I want to say it's like the way they're doing their hybrid program. So half of the kids will go these days, half of the kids, then the other half will do it via Zoom or whatever. That they're actually doing like a daycare format using for the grade school kids at James Madison. So James Madison they're using. And my guess is they're probably going to use about every school building for something just because
I bet they are.
they're dealing with the same issues that we all are.
That's right.
One of the things I had thought of, I have no idea if it's something that would work. Judge Brown is not comfortable with the idea. And then I don't think any of us are, just for the purposes of that's very difficult for a court attendant there. it's easy to corral everybody when you're in the courthouse for the, between Kim Howard, our court attendant, whoever's assisting her in courthouse security, really, there's only three or four floors. You can pretty much keep everybody corralled. It will be a much more difficult task if we're just all of a sudden at the auditorium. Or one of the thoughts I had was maybe the old JCPenney store, because that thing is just a vast amount of space.
Lisa, can I ask, does the police department occupy the second floor where the county attorney used to be?
That building is not safe. And it's not laid out.
No, not this one. The new building, the new police department, because
where would we put them?
I didn't know what all
Oh,
they
they,
were using.
no, they're
use
using
everything.
all their space.
They're using all their space.
And I don't think there is a defense attorney in the world that would agree to that.
Okay.
And if they were, I'd probably file the ethical complaint that they shouldn't
I'm
be
just
agreeing to that.
trying to think of any
Yeah.
place that might have.
And that they do have an unfinished space, but it's not as big as you would think it would be.
Okay.
Not for that purpose anyway.
How about,
So I guess my question is, first, is if we were able to find an acceptable venue to everyone, is that something that the board would be willing to pay for if?
they're gonna depend on the cost.
Well, yeah, if it's not outrageous, we could be able to turn that cost back in on the same thing, shouldn't we?
But might be able to, it would not be a deal breaker for me, obviously, it would depend on, it's gonna cost $1,000 a day, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Goodness
But
gracious,
if
I
it's,
would hope
if it's something other than that, that would not be a deal breaker for me. The hospital, but I don't think the hospital, because they've got some, small amphitheaters, but that would
My
not
guess
be
is
the
they don't,
place. Yeah,
they won't even let you take
Yeah.
more than one person in with you for
Yeah,
a procedure.
so that's not gonna, I'm trying to think of a.
Yeah, and I know when we were, I know Todd and I, after the, Todd, Chris and I, because we're the felony attorneys, we sat for a while just kind of banding around places. Part of it is we just don't have a lot of, like, facilities that would, of that kind.
You know, if you don't wanna, when they're here, they're public out here, there's a lot of empty stores out that mall. And if you can make a deal with one of them malls up there, and then that gives them some place to go,
Yeah.
that would be something, but.
And yeah, and that's why I said, I was thinking the penny store, because I know it is completely empty. I know things have moved into Yonkers, the other stores probably wouldn't be big enough, Penny's would be. But then it would be a question, who's gonna provide, like, the actual facilities, chairs, tables, everything that we would need in order to do jury selection.
Chairs, tables, sound system, who's gonna unlock, who's gonna lock that? Is
Yeah,
there
because we need some
security
sort of
there?
sound system, because, well, our voices might carry really well in the courtroom. I speak for myself, because my voice carries down the street, but, I can't say that my voice would carry the same in a store like that, it's not built for that. So yeah, there would probably be a need for something like, so that's, I mean, that was my only concern about Penny's, was there would be, whereas the auditorium would already be set up for all that. They have a PA system.
Maybe get them up to, because I'm sure Catfish has some sort of a large meeting rooms, they'd be just tickled to have that many people close to the casino.
But can they get up to 100 people
I-
set 6 feet apart?
Well, I don't, they've got that one out there, that hotel room's got that one huge, because they've had, I've seen them, they have weddings there, they'll have we've been.
They've actually
that-
done
or they
concerts,
have-
I think, in that room.
They've done concerts in that room, I know that, and quite honestly, down at, the old Capitol Theater, that's got quite a bit of seating.
Parking would be tough down there if you had another 50 to 100 people
Well, parking's a
down
deal
there.
here, yeah.
Depends on
Yeah,
who
we
you
fight
ask.
parking here. That would be, again, the auditorium truly would be like
The ideal.
best
Yeah.
place, depending on, because they have the sound system, they already
You
have
got
the
balcony
chairs.
and-
Yeah.
They got
They already
parking.
have
They're not that
quasi
far
good
away.
parking. I mean, Two Rivers takes up most of the north lot, but,
So the question is,
and it's close, so.
if she finds a place to put this, are we gonna back her? And I say yes.
Within reason, obviously, I'm not much on giving people blank checks, but I don't think this board's
How
gonna
come
be
I think
your
you know
problem.
me, I try to,
No, I
I try to
understand.
spend the county money
I
pretty
understand it.
wisely.
I guess I would say, I don't think this board's gonna be your problem.
Okay. Well, what I could do is I will have Catherine call around and kind of explain this, make the list and see what we're looking at for a cost. Again, I think auditorium and Old Cap Theater would probably be the best already set up areas to do it because they have sound systems, acoustics are gonna be good.
They would have that sound system out of that casino, whatever it is out there that, because like you said, they've had concerts and stuff out there and it's that's.
I think those
they can
people
set-
bring their own though.
Oh, do they? Okay, might be, I don't know.
Well, they do have their own sound system because we go out for them, that river thing, after the river thing.
Yeah, that thing gets used all the time.
It gets used all the
That's
time.
because that's,
Thing there might be availability.
yeah.
Did
Well,
you
that's-
change that to where you're gonna have jury selection weekly instead of monthly now?
Yeah, and that's the other question, and that'll be something that we'll have to ask the venue folks, is because again, for the most part, well, like September 15th, we know that's gonna be a 4-day trial, so that one's, September 15th is the only day where we really know sort of what's going on.
Yeah.
But after that, so the weekend of the 22nd and 29th, from there on in, depending on the nature of the case, we may have 2 a week. So we would need it on Tuesday and Thursday. Just because a Collins burglary case generally, unless there's something really crazy that happened, Collins burglary is probably gonna take a couple days.
Well, that would be one thing about the old Capitol, they wouldn't use that much during the day. I think almost all of their events are on the weekend or in the evening.
And same with the auditorium.
I was just gonna say, maybe saying something to the paper or something, and then ask local businesses if they, hey, does anybody have something big enough to accommodate this? And, what would you charge the county to do it, and then get a little bidding war going on it. I know I don't know if the theater out there would work, if that'd be big enough, but I know they've been hurting pretty bad for business out there, and you could probably separate all.
My concern there is once they're allowed to open though, they're gonna want to be playing.
Aren't they supposed to open shortly, or maybe they are now?
And my guess is they'll be, that was one of the things that we really, again, not harping on the auditorium, it's just location, in theater would probably be great because they're within walking distance. Generally speaking, in probably 80% of our trials, we have a jury picked by noon, easily. So it's not like, and if it's the kind of jury selection that's gonna take a bit longer, we actually, for a sex assault case, some of those higher profile cases, I think what Judge Brown, we were kind of discussing informally is, what we would probably do on those is actually use our courtroom, but we would only bring in 12 people at a time. Because with those sorts of cases, we spend most of our time back in the jury room with 1 juror at a time. We're gonna do a pre-trial questionnaire. So those I think we're okay with, it's just those run-of-the-mill everyday peeweeds and.
And you'd said that, that your jury might be 50 to 100.
Depends on the case.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, depending on the case, do the attorneys or the judge sit down and say, this is a big case, we need 100 people in this one, or this one is a
I think generally they try to
$1,500
have
burglary.
at least a panel, or excuse me, a pool. We have a pool, and then we go to a panel, and then we actually have the jury. They try to have the pool be anywhere from 45 to 75. Obviously, we get a little bit better.
And they just draw those names.
Just comes off of a list screen.
Is there any way to
I just
draw those names before they show up?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the panel,
Yeah, in other words, so if Colin and I are
but they
both
have
on
to
the.
check in first.
the
See, the way
they have
it
to
works
check in
is,
first. Okay.
Pre-COVID, when life was good. So 100 people would get their summons. Out of that 100 people, probably a good 25 to 30 have already gone in. They're either students or have been deferred, people who don't actually live in Des Moines County anymore. It's amazing how people will tell you real quick, I don't live there anymore. So I'm not doing this. Or they've been excused, they have a pre-planned vacation, medical appointments, whatever it is. So we end up with a pool of about 60 to 75 people.
Is that gonna shrink, or are you gonna have an extra queue? Now somebody shows up and says, I'm 80 years old?
Well, and that's another concern that we're having is, are we even gonna be able to get a pool big enough to get a panel from?
Yeah, so I
Because
don't wanna be,
the Supreme Court has already said the courts are supposed to allow jurors to self-defer. So if they are a member of a high-risk group or someone high risk is in their household, they can automatically defer. That's going to significantly reduce the number that we normally would see.
yeah.
So Judge Brown and I have informally, we're not even sure we're gonna get enough numbers to do jury.
I got an idea on a place, and it's downtown, the Methodist Church has that loft. They've got the downstairs and the upstairs. That upstairs, you know.
Oh, we're the one they rebuilt.
Yeah, when they rebuilt that, and it's right there on Jefferson Street. They've got all the chairs, they've got the tables and everything. And they might give you a real good deal on that, and
Well, and my hope is that once we would explain, this isn't like a one-off, we're
Yeah.
talking, this might be happening for months,
Yeah.
for a while. It may be fairly steady income, so maybe we get a reduction in price for volume. It's not like we're a wedding that we're gonna hopefully only do one time in our lives.
well, they wouldn't
That
have.
this is something that could be a weekly thing, and so I think maybe, I'm hoping that they have the idea, well, this is steady income for the next few weeks that I'm not getting because I can't do all of these other big gatherings, that I'll take the $300 for a Tuesday that I can get.
Doesn't that whole pool of people still have to come in?
They still have to check in, so.
They have to check in and watch that video and do all
Yep,
that?
so out of your,
That's
out of your 100, you've probably gotten down to 75 just from just general, I got other things that are more important than this and you gotta let me out. Then on the day of the trial, those people actually have to come and check in with the clerk. So then, because out of that 75, we might get 50 that actually show up. There have been times where we've had so few people show up for a trial that the judge has directed the sheriff to go start looking for them. And, because I think we had one, I want to say the judge was Danielson, but I can't remember specifically. And we only had 35 that showed up. Well, we have a panel that we're gonna name that's 27. So we only had like 8 extra people. And from there, and then sometimes from that pool that shows up, one of the very first things that the judges will do, okay, we expect this trial to be 2 days. Is there anybody who, since the time you received your summons, anything that has come up? We get funerals, we get people are sick, which is gonna be a bigger issue now. We get people who thought they were gonna have daycare, but their daycare provider called that morning and can I get out of this now because I don't have anybody to watch my kid. We just have kind of those hardship issues anyway. Then we're getting down to, okay, now we've got our 45 people that we can pick our panel from. That's randomly drawn from those 45 that we're left with. And then that's when we start getting into, okay, well, does anyone know Colin Gerst? Oh, I know him. We're next door neighbors, man. I even heard about that burglary. He's talked about it for 3 months. Yeah, you need to go. Goodbye. Have a nice day. We'll call you on Thursday because you might be good for that one. So we're always losing people. We're just not going to start out with very high numbers. I think we're going to struggle. So if it's a murder case, for instance, then the judge will direct the clerk's office, rather than calling in the 100, I need you to call in 175. Because we need to know.
Just gonna ask if you foresee that you're gonna have a higher group of disqualifications or whatever, that you would just call in.
Sex assault cases, we generally always see a few more, because they're just people, either they know someone, they themselves have a close friend or family member who's either been accused of sexual assault, been a victim of sexual assault, and we generally get rid of those folks. And then homicides, but there's usually just because they're so highly publicized and everybody already knows about them. Or, for instance, the Chu case, oh my goodness, everybody knows a member of the Chu family. And so we really struggled with that. That's why that first trial took so long. And so, yeah, we already know we have a homicide trial set in December. That had been set before COVID. We knew we were going to be doing that one. Right now, we've kind of left it in place. We're just, I don't know how we'll worry about it in December.
During jury selection, doesn't the defendant have to be be present.
Defendant has to be
So the judge will be
present.
there, the defendants, the lawyer, you guys. So there could be a transport officer there too if they're incarcerated. So transport would have to transport that person to wherever this place of
Yep.
business is.
And then, of
But
course,
they have
the
to be separate. So like if some of these places, if they don't have an elevator or back entrance, would they not be able to go through the same?
Yeah, there are a lot of
entrances and
logistical issues we would have to work out with the sheriff's office when we do off-site. So we'll definitely probably wanna be in, once we kind of get a couple places narrowed down that we think would really be feasible. The big takeaway we had from the Wednesday meeting was that because this report is just really just general recommendations. There's, Judge Brown even indicated, I expected there to be like more nuts and bolts, you need to do this, this, and this. There really isn't. But I think once we got done at the end of the meeting, we realized why. What works in Des Moines County will not work in Van Buren County.
That's right.
As I mentioned earlier, the two Lee counties are completely separate. The North Lee County courthouse, we don't know how they would be able to do a jury trial in it. They're probably gonna have to use South Lee's. What works in Mahaska County doesn't work in Appanoose County. And so the biggest takeaway, I think that the one thing that we actually all concluded on at the end of that meeting was each county is really gonna have to establish as their courtroom work group what's gonna work for them. Because what works here is not gonna work in Louisa.
Just still, the library, you know, they've got that one meeting room that I think they can make larger or smaller. How many people does that hold? Or is that, how often they use that?
The library?
The library, they've got those meeting rooms as you come in, off to the left. Then they've got smaller ones throughout the library, but they've got that one big one.
It would not hold that many people, not at 6 feet apart.
What about SCC's little theater?
They're dealing with their own social
School,
distancing
yeah.
issues, so I'm not sure how they would wanna do that. They're worth calling and asking, but
They
my
were-
guess
they
is
were
they're
helpful.
going to be utilizing that as well.
Yeah, they were helpful when school was closed, when we moved our precinct out
But
there.
yeah,
They
school
were
will be
more
up
than
and running,
helpful.
Monday is when my son starts classes, so. Yeah, we had thought about that, but then it was like they'll probably be utilizing that for their own issues, because I know they have some bigger classes that they actually plan on having in the auditorium. It's like some introductory freshman type classes.
Would the trial have to be held in the courtroom? Or like if you did jury selection and everything, let's say you used the auditorium, could you just do the whole trial? Or at least like if it was a day or two, could you do the trial there? Or would it have, you know what I mean, if you had like a bunch of people and like a higher profile deal, could you just have the whole thing there? Or would it
And that's
have to be
something we
here
really
and
didn't go
video
into,
out?
we kind of stuck with the jury selection.
gonna be a lot
The
of
thought for if
security.
we have a lot of attendees, interested parties, or what I like to call them, who wanna watch, if maybe there might be somewhere where the library could come in useful if we're live streaming, so we could put the defendant's family in that room. So they could be watching it on a computer. Our office, obviously, we would make available to our victim and whoever they have with them as best we can. And then if we need, I mean, there are some other smaller rooms where you can put 3 or 4 people. But so for the trial, I think we can get everybody in the courtroom, we just have to kind of, most people other than Colin are not interested in Colin's burglary, sorry.
I didn't even
Just
know
not
that.
high on the list of, every once in a while we'll get it, well, I don't think we'll see it now, but we used to get like an SEC class or a Notre Dame high school civics government class that would come in and watch trials. My guess is we're not gonna be seeing a lot of that in the near future, but every once in a while, you'll get a juror that stays. They'll just sit in the back, we're like, cause we always have to, you've been excused, you can go home, nope, figured I already came, I'm up, I'm dressed, I'm gonna sit and watch. Okay, it's rare, but it does happen. So most trials, we just don't have a lot of that. Usually the trials where we're gonna see a lot of people are assaults against persons, stabbings, shootings, sex assaults, and homicides. That's where we get everybody wanting to see what's happening. Because the victim themselves is generally gonna be a witness, and we're gonna have them fairly isolated in our office anyway, for when they testify.
Well,
Well, I think the best thing to do is have
See if we can get some prices.
See if we can get some prices, and the place I did mention does have a back door where you can get, in that alleyway.
And what Rodney's mentioning is because the first 8,000 trials are probably gonna be for people who are incarcerated.
Yeah.
While they're generally, hopefully, someone has brought them some plain clothes to wear. I've only had 2, I think, in my entire career where no one had like street clothes. They had to come in orange just because that's all that was available. They still need to, because they're usually shackled, handcuffed, getting out of a patrol vehicle. Generally what they do now is they just bring them in through the back door, they park in the alley, bring them up through, they go right up to the 4th floor and none of the jurors see them.
Yeah.
The first time the jurors actually see them is when they're entering the courtroom. They either have the shock belt on or the leg braces or sometimes both, but at no time does the juror actually able to see that this, obviously there's a court person there that they know was there for security reasons, but they don't necessarily can tell by looking at them to know they're incarcerated. And we're obligated to do that. So those are other, and I know for some of the more high profile cases, or if there's anything that's gang related, again, those shootings, those stabbings, those sorts of things, sometimes we have things where there's bad blood between groups of people, we'll just leave it at that. And sometimes those groups of people will actually converge in our courtroom. And so I know there will be some other security issues. That's a little bit more challenging, I think, for the sheriff's office to make sure those have been met. For instance, I know when we did the Chew cases, Mike or one of his people would come in every morning before everyone but me apparently, because I got to watch him do the security thing, where they would do a security sweep of everything to make sure somebody wasn't able to get something in the courtroom that they're leaving for the next morning. That's going to be a little bit harder regardless of whatever off-site facility, because it's unknown to them for one thing. And maybe it's obviously going to be a lot bigger. So those are some things that we'll have to kind of deal with the sheriff's office about. But I know Judge Brown was just kind of like, well, first see if they're going to pay for it, because some counties won't, and they've already made that clear that they won't. And there are some trials where it would just be a non-issue, because we know, because of the nature of the trial, we're going to be going ahead and doing individual voir dire. So I think the plan would be at 9 o'clock, we're going to bring in, A through H is told you're going to come in at 9 o'clock. We can distance everybody appropriately. Once we've got those folks gone through their individual voir dire, then I through M comes in at 10 o'clock and we do those folks. And then we can just use the courtroom. That's not going to be a problem, because we know each one individually is going to be taken in to be talked to. And then from there, hopefully we can find, 40, yep, you're all good. And then once we send them home, we could generate the list and only call the 27 back in that we know we're going to have. The problem we have is if we end up excusing them, then we got to have people coming up. The only time I've ever really ran into it is I did do a trial, an arson trial, back before Judge Wright became Judge Wright, when he was still John, where we were down to 2 people. We had excused so many people from the pool, we had 2 left. Thank goodness we were able to find a jury, because we were gonna run out of people. But that's because the kid committed an arson and then somebody let him out of jail, and so in the 2 days between he was let out of jail and his trial on the first one, he burned his house down. And they had a lovely color photograph in front of the Hawkeye, so that everyone had seen it the day before, and so they already knew who he was. And so it was difficult. There was a individual voir dire. We did a lot of that. Did you see the paper yesterday? Yeah.
You're out.
What do you think? You say picture's worth. We knew we were in trouble in the very first gentleman that came in. I've heard the old adage that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and you could just see John Wright go, and what exactly are you trying to say? Nope, this one pretty much said 1 to me. And that would have been guilty. This is gonna be a long day.
What do you do if somebody walks in there when you're interviewing them and they say, I think he's guilty?
We have people do that all the time.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get rid of them or keep them?
Well, try to rehabilitate them.
Yeah.
Okay, what makes you think he's guilty? Well, I heard this, and this, and this. Okay, well, that was all off of Facebook. Can we all agree that what we hear on Facebook is not necessarily accurate?
I used to.
Well, yeah. And do you acknowledge that there may be information that comes out in trial that is either inconsistent with what you read on Facebook, or maybe is in addition to, or there are some things you're going to hear on Facebook you just don't ever hear about in trial? Well, that's probably true. Okay, well, could you put aside everything you heard on Facebook? Well, I think I could do that. I was saying, in doing that, if you were just to ignore everything you read, can you base your verdict only on what you hear in court? Well, I think I could do that. I said, and if you do that right now, do you have any evidence? Well, no. So do you know if they're guilty or innocent? Well, I guess not. Yeah, Facebook, it's a wonderful platform, but it has its drawbacks. We had a sex assault where, yeah, by the time we were done, our 2.5 days of jury selection, because it had been splattered all over Facebook, everybody knew one of the two parties, and, because you would ask, well, did you read the article? I don't really read the article so much as the comments. Which is where the problem lies, is in all the comments. So yeah, we just, yeah, if they just know this, you know, I heard this, I know this person told me this, I believe this, I don't care what comes out of that, but this is what I believe because this is what I've been told. Okay, well, you might be a great juror, but not in this case, so we'll see you next week.
Well,
It's just gonna be a challenge.
I think this board has tried to facilitate getting
And I think that's what Judge Brown had
Getting
hoped
this-
when we talked.
getting this through there. Like I said, I'm not much for blank checks, but I don't think we're gonna be your problem.
Okay. What I'll do is we'll start making some inquiries to see what we can find, and, you know, have like a top 5 list of we think these are the places that would work best. And then we'll sit down and explain to those folks, you know, what it is we're actually going to need, how often we think we might need it, and what they think their going rate would be. My guess is for some of these venues that haven't been able to really do much, they're gonna be glad for any income. My only concern is, ooh, the county needs it?
Oh, boy.
I think that might be your concern, Tom. Well, normally it would be 300, but if it's the county, let's,
We're gonna make it 3,500.
yeah,
If you find any good
Don't let
locations,
Henning
let
up
me
for
know.
election.
Pardon?
I said, if you find any good locations, let me know, because I'm trying to figure out how to do my
The
polar
barn.
training.
The barn.
I will let you know, yeah, that's,
Maybe the days you don't
If-
use it, I can
if-
sneak in my polar
If anybody thinks
training.
anything, text any ideas to Lisa.
yeah, I
Come
mean,
up
if
with
you think of
ideas,
a
yeah.
place that, you know, we obviously wanna stay in town and as close to the courthouse as possible. Because a lot of times we may get a jury picked by 10:45. And so if it's someplace that's already downtown, the judge can say, okay, I'm giving you until 11:50, we're gonna adjourn now, you know who's been chosen, I expect you to be in the courtroom at 11:15, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So that way they're close, they, you know, if they've got a parking spot, they're pretty good about that. What we may have to do is have a conversation with the city about juror placards, so they're not held to their 3 hours.
The, down there, well, they have events down there, they'll have pick stuff down there at one end of the
Port
court
building.
building, you know, they've got there where they've got all the picnic tables and everything. I guess I've never really thought about it, and it's been long enough I've been in that building, but I think there's pretty good spaces in there, and there, I've been in there, and they'll have dozens of picnic tables.
Acoustics
Boy,
are
the
really bad.
acoustics
in
in
Yeah,
there.
the
place
acoustics would be
sucks.
horrible, and
Well-
it's
Really bad.
hotter than Hades.
That's,
Yeah,
that's,
it's not
that's.
quite.
Trust me, that's where my son had his graduation party on that day where it was like 97 degrees. Yeah, there was no air movement, there was nothing. It was
And the other
Yeah.
end is a smaller room, right?
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
heat
you got,
and
and that's,
and
Big
that, but
money
it's not
down
a very
there,
large.
maybe they'd open that up for you. That wine guards?
Oh,
Oh,
what,
Big
Big
Mud-
Muddies?
I don't know if it'd be big.
I don't know what condition it's
And
in.
it would probably need a lot of cleaning
I
up.
was about to say, if it's been unused for a while, it would be,
The auditorium's your best deal if you.
That would truly, I think, be our first choice, just because again, it's within walking distance. The
yeah.
jurors wouldn't even have to move
Let
their
me
car.
know if you get anybody to respond to you on that one too, because I called them when I was looking for a location and
I will
nobody
do.
called me back, so.
Okay.
You might have
I
larger
don't know what kind
pool.
of shape it's in with the old
well,
Oak
good luck.
Street, Oak
Yeah.
Street auditorium.
Lisa, you lost
Oak Street
one of your
School.
pins.
That's privately owned now, though, so
Yeah.
I don't know if Dr. although, you know, maybe Dr. Hendricks would be willing to work with us. The only concern I would have about that, again, there's no air.
Oh, there's not.
Yeah, Oak Street doesn't have air,
Oh,
that
that's
was a
true.
big reason why they went ahead and built them a new school.
That's
And that auditorium can
I
get a
forgot
little
about
toasty.
The city should do it because the majority of the people you're gonna run through there come out of the city.
I can tell you, I think it's 87% of the cases we prosecute are Burlington Police Department cases.
Lisa, you lost one of your good pens over there too, so don't forget to pick
Oh,
it up.
yeah. So yeah, that is true, but I don't think this, but
Oh,
unfortunately, the statute requires the county to do it, so.
I understand. Believe me, I understand.
No, and truly, the police department has actually been really good. We actually needed to do some depositions involving an officer that was deploying, that we, back when we thought we were starting in July, we knew he wasn't gonna be available. And the police department's been really, really good if their Black Hawk room is big enough to accommodate. And so they accommodated about 4 days of video deposition so we could get, granted, I might have thrown in the, he's your officer. But they were really, really great. They have been really gracious, but I know they just don't have a room that would even begin to approach being big enough. And again, as a former defense attorney, there is no way on this earth I would ever allow jury selection to take place in a police department. It's just bad from bad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that would probably reduce the numbers of jurors we get even more. So.
I'm not going in there.
I can't count on some of
They know me.
on some of the trials where we've had to put up the magnetometer. We always get an average of 3 or 4 PCS cases.
PCS.
Possession of controlled.
Oh.
They're told to empty their pockets and put everything in a bin, so if you
Like
look
an
at,
like an
pot, yeah.
idiot, like an
There's all,
idiot, they throw drugs
there's
in there.
pipe and everything,
That's
it just
all
goes
it
into
was,
the
it's just
basket.
this-
The sheriff has mentioned that before.
There's-
That people walk up like, oh, you're gonna.
I'm like, it didn't dawn on you that,
Yeah.
There's-
Fortunate
that's,
inventory is not in there.
yeah, they'll run back and put their gun in their car, but they'll forget their dope in their
That's,
pocket.
yeah. They wonder why they got caught.
It's not the smart ones always.
Which
that keep us
happens
in
to me.
business. But yeah, I will get it narrowed down to the top 4 or 5 places, see what we can come up with as far as, what a rate would be for those places. And maybe they are just, we're just glad to have any business, we would give you what we would give anyone else. I can't imagine Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to noon are like super high traffic times.
And
for them
that's
to
the
do
only
it.
thing is some of the motels have meeting rooms, but I guess I just don't know what sizes they are.
I know the Comfort Suites has that one room where they have the used to have the Crime Stoppers fundraiser, that they can divide.
That's a big room.
I don't know how many
Is that
people
Howard
would be
Johnson?
able to.
What about
Howard
the
Johnson.
Steamboat Senior Center?
Oh, my guess is they would never allow us in there,
Okay.
just because of the nature of what it is. They would be terrified that somebody would leave a germ.
Oh, I didn't think about that, yeah.
And the hours she would probably wanna use is by the time that they would probably be there.
Yeah.
Well, then they could.
And I know with Comfort Suites, I think they actually have some sound equipment as well, so.
That's the one that they had the tax, or they used to have the tax sales, was that Comfort Suites at the edge of town?
Yep.
Yeah, you could expand that room pretty big.
Yeah, they just have
Yeah, that's a
dividers,
big
so they can
room.
make the room kind of as big as they need it to be, but when you have like the main room, the only time I've ever been in it when it's undivided is when they used to have their Crime Stoppers fundraiser there. And it's a pretty sizable place,
Yeah.
sizable room.
But yeah, they do have audio and everything, because the treasurer used to use it when they
I
had
think
the
the
tax sales.
Kiwanis
that's-
was there too, so might be in
Like at some
competition with
different
them.
hotels, I know they've got those out there. Actually, I think that's where they have the iClub dinner, so.
The Kiwanis meets out there, the Rotary,
Yeah.
they all meet out there, but they usually divide those rooms up so they're small. We use them, and I know they have pretty good sound equipment because we also use them, the middle school and high schools, regional mock trial competitions are held out there too. Good bathroom facilities, I mean, I hadn't thought about that one. So yeah, I will go ahead and work on that and hopefully by next week have something to report on what I think the costs would be. So that's kind of the first thing we had to, the first hurdle that we had. But my guess is the trials on the 22nd will be more like Collins burglary, will be just a general run-of-the-mill trial. And it's not mine. I don't have any demands on the list for September, so I am just
You're gonna
sitting
have to put
pretty.
locks on your
I know.
doors.
Yep.
How long ago did that happen?
Recently, apparently.
She just made that up.
Oh. I kept talking about it, I thought maybe it had, I said I hadn't heard anything.
That's what we call hypothetical.
See what makes her a good prosecutor? Oh, guilty, we know it.
She had me all ready to convict the guy.
Oh, God.
When are you gonna sentence him?
Well, after Holland gives his victim impact statement.
The insurance guy would never believe how much technology equipment I had in the house when they started.
Hey, surveillance, people in their surveillance video, it is, as long as they're willing to tell us they have it, oh, that stuff is priceless. I mean, it's just.
It's so cheap, like I put one up on my garage there a couple months back, it's really cheap and easy to put one up now, it really is.
What's that, cameras?
Yeah, you get wireless little Wi-Fi cameras, they're really good and they're cheap.
For Christmas, my kids bought me some of them, and I've got them on my house, and you can get on the phone, and man, it's clear too, and I can see clear over.
Usually the issue when we're doing neighborhood canvases is that they don't like to tell law enforcement that they have surveillance equipment, even though we can't see it, but no. Nope, doesn't work.
I bought that ring.
That's from the previous owners.
How come they don't want to share that? I'm pretty dense, but I mean, unless I'm selling drugs out of the garage.
Not everyone wants to be cooperative with law enforcement.
Oh.
Well, I don't know.
Even when it has nothing to do with them, they just do not want to cooperate with law enforcement. They don't want to be a part of it.
They can come by and look at mine if they want to.
But yeah, it's been very, very helpful in solving some cases or ruling people out. Sometimes we might have somebody who, you know, to get out of their case, wants to work out a deal. Well, I saw this, this, and this. Well, where were you when that happened? And then we're watching the surveillance video, like, you weren't anywhere near where you said you were. You're making all this up. We've had that happen a few times. So it's just a good tool overall for us. I wish, I don't have it, but then I haven't had a lot of issues in my neighborhood. And well, that's because we're a neighborhood where everybody knows everybody. If you do something weird, do something you're not supposed to be doing, somebody's gonna call us and say, you know, you got this kid over, and yeah, I know, he's actually supposed to be there. He's watching our dog, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, the Chew homicide is a perfect example. But because of, between the surveillance video across the river and just individual surveillance videos here in that neighborhood, we were literally able to track those cars everywhere they went. So it's an invaluable, I don't like to celebrate, it's an invaluable tool.
Okay, well.
So yeah, hopefully by next week I'll have something to report, have an idea of what it'll cost. Again, I know Judge Brown is not sold on the idea yet, but I wanted to make sure that I could at least say, hey, I've talked to the board, they're willing, if this is what we've decided we want to do, they're willing to pay a reasonable amount in order to make sure that we can get our trials moving.
I will mention real quick, if we are planning on doing some live stream stuff up there, if you're wanting to get equipment up there, it would probably be best to do it now than later, because getting some of that equipment in is taking a lot longer. Any kind of audio video equipment is pretty high.
Yeah, maybe what you, Kathy, and Rodney and I just all have a meeting, figure out what we might need up there. Obviously, placement of cameras is gonna be important because we can't, the jury's on camera. In the same way, we try to avoid to, so I'll have Kat email you guys and we can find a time in the next week or so.
Sooner the better.
Yeah, I still have desks that need to be put together, Rodney.
Yeah, I know.
And actually,
I know it's on the list.
It is not the assembly of the desks, because I've established I can do that.
Yeah.
It's the moving of the furniture to get everything where I need it to be, so I can put them together, but. Yeah, because they're still sitting in the vestibule.
The vestibule, all right.
Okay, well,
thanks
for touching base with us.
Thanks for your time, I appreciate it,
We,
and the generosity. Hopefully we'll be able to find something that's gonna work and can make everyone happy.
Careful how you throw that word.
Want this to work.
Generosity? Oh, I won't ruin your image, don't worry.
I know you won't, I know you won't.
Mr. Broker.
Yeah,
we're adjourned.
Yeah, we don't want the courts to think that they're too friendly with us.
I have no clue.
And we don't always agree with everything.